Hey friends, today on Gritty, I'm hanging with my good buddy Tim Burnett, the Solo Hunter brand OG. We recorded this podcast at my house after returning from our Oklahoma Whitetail hunt. Tim is one of my favorite people to hang out with. He's gonna have fun, but he's not gonna talk your ear off. In fact, you kinda have to drag words out of him. So it was not a surprise to me when I found out that Tim created a podcast for the Solo Nation with more than 15 recorded episodes, and I didn't know about it. I'm all about more Solo Hunter, so if you're like me, go and subscribe to the Solo Hunter podcast and get some. Here it is, folks, a final Oklahoma Whitetail podcast recording session with Mr. Solo himself before he rode off into the sunset in the aged and crippled Solorado. I like to drop my pack, actually, when everything's flat and the total acreage is 300 acres. I don't care. I can walk back any of those places.
Doesn't matter. What if your stomach hits you and you had to just go really fast and you didn't have your paper or anything?
I just go without the paper.
Nah, screw that. No. I take off my pack to get food out of it or to take a dump. That's it. And other than that, it's back on my back.
See this pillow, people? Hangry. It's our adjective. A state of anger caused by lack of food, hunger causing a negative change in emotional state. That's just a constant reminder to my family and my children that is a state for which people should be on guard against.
I don't get hangry. I get hungry and I satisfy that. Why prolong it? If you're hungry, eat.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I agree. Well, we are in Evergreen, folks. Welcome to the Gritty Bowman podcast. We're at my house in Evergreen, Colorado. We made the trip back from Oklahoma today. Got up at the crack of dawn and rode into town, and we basically drove straight to the mechanic because the Solorado is what do you call it? Dying. And so
no,
it's got a.
It was in need of
repairs.
Yeah, it was a repair.
It's
minor repair. Alternator. Heck, I could have done that in my garage.
How minor? Yeah, I guess it is minor.
I could have stayed at your house that night, driven down to Napa, bought an alternator, and been on the road by like 9 a.m.
I'm just glad, folks, that we took my vehicle instead.
Me too. It was nice to scratch the crap out of yours on all the willows in Oklahoma.
I'm not gonna lie. That did hurt a little bit.
Dude, your floor mats are full of sand spurs. Full.
And for those of you who don't know what sand spurs are, they're
we've talked about
horrible.
Sand spurs.
We did, but if you didn't hear that episode, it is like they're like little tiny spiky balls. It's hard to describe. You need to actually see one because they're not.
You'll find them. You'll be finding them for a while.
I picture spiky balls, those sticky things, cat's paw or whatever that get on
they're
your.
Not nothing like that.
No, these are painful.
They're out to get you.
Yeah,
you find them.
So we're gonna talk just briefly, kind of about the whitetail hunt in Oklahoma and recap, kind of say the end because we had a long drive home I'm home.
I have a long drive home.
But on the trip back, just reminiscing and thinking about the trip in general, and it was a lot of fun. And so we figured we'd just do a quick show before Tim gets back on the road.
Actually, I was in the truck already punching in the map saying, "Get me out of Evergreen. I'm headed west."
You were.
And you rapped on the window and said, "Let's do a podcast." And so I was like, "Just don't tell my wife. I'm not on the road yet."
That's right. This is top secret.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we were talking about this. This is my first time. This is my second really whitetail hunt, like Eastern Midwest kind of. I did Alabama last February, actually, ironically, and it was just a blast, right? So I don't have a lot to compare my experiences to stack them up.
Especially since the place you went to in Alabama is a special place. It's not typically what you think of when you think of hunting whitetails in Alabama.
Totally. I mean, Brian Broderick has a really beautiful piece of property that we got to hunt.
Who I met. He was there in Oklahoma hunting.
Yeah.
So met him. That was cool.
We had dinner with Brian because it's ironic. I think
good dude.
I didn't know he was going to be there. And, he might have told me when we were in Alberta, but I'm like, hey, I want whitetails. He's like, oh, yeah? And then he pretty much nailed it. where we were at,
Yeah,
guessing.
Just by the shower door on the
That's
hotel,
right.
the inn that we were staying at.
Yeah.
My daughter, she's funny. She gets on the phone. I think you might have been listening. She's like, "Are you staying in a hotel or a motel? Because motels are gross." I'm like, neither. It's an inn.
It's very true. So we hung out. It
had hot water and a soft bed.
It did, and we got to meet. We got to hang out with Brian, who was hunting a piece of property nearby there, and he shot a great whitetail up there. But we were talking about previous episodes of Solo Hunter where you've been on this property and some of the bucks you've taken, and what your experience is hunting, a place like this. This property you've been on for a long time. We kind of covered that. But so tell me a little bit about your experience this year compared to like the best year you've had on there.
This was the worst year I've ever had out there. Not. I mean, I could have killed deer. There's no question.
Mm-hmm.
I could have killed deer. But it's just like we didn't see the quality or the numbers of mature bucks that we normally see.
And define quality, you mean age class? Like,
well, so in this area, this isn't Kansas. It's not Illinois. You're not after. I mean, I hate inches. Inches don't matter to me. What matters to me is whoa, that's a cool looking deer. Or whatever.
Right.
Like I almost shot one buck that came in on me that I passed on. He's thinking he was going to go to you. There was a nice, tight racked, heavy, bladed out, probably a 3.5-year-old deer, maybe a 4-year-old deer.
When I saw the video, I was so excited.
You're like, he's coming.
I mean,
he's coming.
It looks like these claws coming up,
Yeah.
and it was neat.
I almost smacked him, but I've got a few like that, and it's like Jeremy and I talk. So Jeremy's my buddy that lives there in the area, and he's the one that ultimately connected me to this place that I've been hunting with for years, him and Stacy. And we're like, we want to manage this place because it's special. Like, it's a special piece of property. But for some dang reason, there's only been 1 or 2 bucks that are reoccurring or that come back. Like, I passed on a big 8-point buck one year, and he was there again the following year, and Jeremy's wife shot it. Well, very rarely are the deer that I see last year going to be here this year, or that I see them. Like, it's really weird, but we always have quality deer. But it's really hard to. It's really hard to say, oh yeah, I'm after tank or I'm after whatever.
Right.
We're not necessarily after.
You don't manage or watch the property that much.
No, somebody
like
asked a question on Instagram. Asked Tim about his game management system. There is no game management. It's hoping that the neighbor doesn't kill all the 2-year-olds so that you can actually have a 3 or a 4-year-old walk by.
Right. And that said, so I show up and I've never seen this I've never been here before. And from my perspective, it was paradise. I mean, whitetails.
It was good. We saw a lot of deer.
Whitetails everywhere, big rubs, and we did have some game camera photos from, there that we got to see of some bucks that are out there in the last month or so. They were at night, so they're, but that they've been on your property, and those were some really nice looking deer, some big bucks. Maybe, and even as we were driving up there, you're like, yeah, these are great bucks. You're like, Brian, shoot whatever you want. I mean, that's up to you. You don't care.
7-point, shoot it.
Whatever makes you happy, shoot it. But you're like, then I saw those photos and I'm like, okay, so this is what we're dealing with. And you're like, no. This is okay. Like, I would shoot these with a bow, probably not with a rifle on the rifle hunt. And the way this works is we showed up on opening day for archery, and then you can continue hunting archery through rifle, but opening day for rifle was Saturday.
Right.
So we hunted the whole time with our bows, and then on that one day, partly because we hadn't really been seeing a lot of action, and I'd been in the timber with the bow, and I wanted to hit the big, wide open.
Well, we both had our bows in the stands anyway.
Yeah, we had bows and rifles on the same day. So,
because if you can kill it with a bow, why not?
Do it.
Why not let it come in?
But if it's out there 300 yards and it's not coming in,
there was no shooting 300 yards in that wind, man.
Well, and that's the thing.
My tree was like this. So there's no we don't hunt box blinds. Box blinds is not. We have 1 or 2 of them on the property, but like. I had to ask Jeremy, I'm like, so if I go back in that box blind, is there a chair in there? He's like, there might not be a floor in there,
Right.
He's like, I don't know if I trust that or not.
Thing's a bit ancient.
It's been so long since we've hunted in a box blind.
But I show up and I hunt and I sit out there and basically morning, afternoon, and evening I see deer that I would be happy to shoot. But I'm internally going,
maybe there's a bigger one.
Maybe there's a big one, and is this the one to shoot? And I have this thing where I don't want the hunt to be over.
Yeah. Let me go back and set this up. This is a private land hunt. This is not public land. This is a hunt this is a 320 acre piece or 360 acre piece that I have been on since 2000, that I've got a lot of history with. So it's not like I'm not trying to throw out and say that we're trophy hunters or we're trying to manage property or whatever. We just know what's there and what I've had experience with in the past. If I was on a public land piece or whatever, I'd probably smash the first buck that walked by, So I don't want anybody to think that I'm just this dirt bag trophy hunter or whatever else. It's like, no, I've killed a crap load of whitetail on there. And you had dinner with Jeremy a couple of times. Jeremy's like, why aren't you killing stuff? He's like, you used to just stack them up, like firewood.
Talking to you.
Talking to me, yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm old now. I'm kind of past that. I want.
Well, and I think that's the evolution.
So I just wanted to preface that, so everybody knows exactly where we're at.
I think that's the evolution of a bow hunter. It's like when I first was hunting blacktails, anything that came by was great. And first and foremost, when, we talked about this, I like meat.
Yeah.
I like my game meat, but at the same time, I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I've shot a whole bunch of bucks like this, and I'm in it for an experience now, and I want the hunt to last longer, and I want to try to get the older one. And there's a huge difference when trying to kill like a 3-year-old whitetail versus a 6-year-old whitetail, and the same is like there's night and day differences. Each year a deer survives, its intelligence shoots through the roof.
Oh yeah, multiple times.
And so it's not like this small difference between a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. The difference is so huge, it's ridiculous.
So here's where I'm at. It's like I'm way past the point of caring what killing an animal might do for my social media profile,
right?
Or for people to think of me as like a legit hunter. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit. I don't care. Like, what is a legit hunter or whatever? It doesn't really matter. Are you a hunter, killer, whatever? It's like, I don't want to just kill something and be like, well, man, I can get some cool photos and whatever else. I can make that buck look big or whatever it is.
Right.
People are going to think I'm awesome because I tag out every time. It's like, no, the reality of the fact is I tag out way lower percentage than those that I don't.
Yeah.
Every time I go on a hunt, I've got an opportunity to kill something, almost without exception, as a lot of people might be when you're hunting good areas and that. But I just personally am to the point mentally that I'm like, hunting is for me. It's for my experience, and I just want to show me and my experience.
I feel the same way. I went to
some of those,
I went on a few hunts this year, and even this one where people are like, shoot it. Yeah. Like as I share something on Instagram or whatever, and I'm like, I get pressure when I did live stories of elk hunting in Montana. Like, just shoot.
To me, that's all the more reason not to pull the trigger when you're getting pressured. It's like, screw you.
I'm kind of like the anti-peer pressure kind of guy. Like, I find myself wanting to do the opposite. But I'm in the same way. I don't want to kill an animal just to kill an animal, just to have a success story or to, I want a certain experience. The whole thing is a package now for me. I want a certain adventure for me, and it's not about killing a giant either, like some giant trophy animal and getting recognition for that either. It's all personal. It's what I want to do for me. And so it's interesting because of this hyper social world that we're in and the visibility that people have, and because I'm very open about my life and about my hunts and my thoughts and what I do, and I share it openly. And so being that open invites a lot of criticism.
Sure.
And judgment, and that's okay. I'm willing to take that, but I'm not going to change what I want for myself on a hunt because of those external forces.
Hey, we as a society pass judgment on somebody that drives a Toyota pickup, like whoever drives a Ford pickup, whoever drives
who drives a Solorado.
There's
some judgment there.
There's no judgment whatsoever. It's like that man knows what life is all about. That is a man that values his truck.
I got a lot of comments, people asking when you were going to wise up and buy a Dodge.
Oh, my brother texted me right away. He's like, Brian said your truck died. What happened? I'm like, it didn't die.
I may have stretched it a little bit.
It needed an alternator. Heck, the thing's 15 years old. I mean, come on. It's 12 years old.
Yeah. But
it's time for an alternator.
But you're kind of past what people think, so you're not going to go buy a new truck just because people say you need one.
Dude, I could walk into any dealership and write a check for a truck. It's not about that.
Yeah.
For me, there's a lot of life in that. And I've told the story before. Maybe I can't remember on yours, but I bought that truck off the lot the month that I quit my job and started in the hunting industry full time. So there's so much.
You have a sentimental heart, and it's tied to that truck.
I'd give it to my dad and let it be a farm truck and go buy a new truck, but I'd hate to see it die. It's like next thing you know, the bed's ripped off and the tractor runs into it. And no, it's like I value things, and it's I don't know, it's just different. And back to where we were at before we got sidetracked. Like I'm after the biggest animal on the mountain every time.
Yeah.
When I go on a hunt, that's my goal. I want to kill the biggest bull that I can find. I want to kill the biggest mule deer that I can find. It just doesn't always happen. I don't always find the biggest bull on the mountain. Mm-hmm. I usually find something that I'm happy with, and I try to kill it.
But for you, there had to be some pressure to...
Yeah, so why didn't you say, Tim, you kill that deer? Don't let me kill it. You kill it. Why didn't you say that?
Oh, when we were out there?
Yeah.
Because then that would just go against...
It's like, Tim, you need it. Tim, you need it for your show. You need to kill this animal. I don't need it. I'm a podcaster. I don't need it.
Because... And I think that has a lot to do with, like, we talked about this on the way here. You have a certain deer you want to kill with a rifle when you're there. And you're like, this isn't quite that deer.
I think you knew deep down that I wasn't going to kill it no matter what. I was going to let that thing walk.
Well, and I didn't want to see.
You're like, don't let it walk.
That's a nice deer.
Yeah, he's a great deer.
He's a great deer, right? So
after you killed it, I was like, I should have killed it.
Which I'm so glad you didn't.
What I wish I would have done is not even flagged you down. I wish I would have gone back to my tree stand and grabbed my bow and then come out.
But how that's hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, but hindsight, I'm a killer. Hindsight, it's like, man, you play it out in your head, and it's like, that would have been so awesome. Sneak up in there, have the camera on it. All of a sudden, you see me pop up, and the deer's like, oh, crap, and then you're just like, boom.
Yeah, it would have been cool.
80-mile-an-hour gusts. You have these visions of what
could have happened.
Coulda, yeah.
Oh, I have a lot of those, too.
Truth is, lucky that buck didn't stand up, or I would have killed it.
But as far as the pressure goes, you don't let that get to you. I
used to feel a lot of pressure. I used to. Honestly, I used to. I mean, because it bothers you because people are talking about that. And in certain social circles, it's, oh, this guy's a killer. This guy's legit. This guy's this. This guy's that. You know, he can't get it done. Why is he even on TV? I mean, you hear these when you're in the industry and with industry people. And that's what industry people are talking about.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why I don't hang out with industry people, you know?
Yeah.
I like people, like hunting is 10% of my life, you know? It's 100% of my business, but it's only 10% of my life. There's a lot of things that I'm interested in. So the social circles I run in are not necessarily hunting circles.
Right.
But I used to feel a lot of pressures, like you got to perform, you got to kill an animal for every episode. The networks are putting it on you. The sponsors are putting it on you. Your cohorts are putting it on you.
Your buddies.
And then after a while, it's just like, man, this is becoming too stressful. What do I need to do to sit back and keep hunting from becoming not what it is for me? Well, and the answer was hunt for yourself, hunt for what you're happy with, just hunt for the adventure, hunt for the experience, and still continue to hunt for the biggest animal on the mountain because that's the ultimate goal. But sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. So I'm in a very comfortable place for me personally with my hunting.
Yeah, you're a little stubborn.
Or hunting. I'm pretty stubborn.
You're a little stubborn. Or
has Solo Hunter ever been about conforming?
No.
Everything about it.
No, I mean it's
a contradictory to
We talked about this on the way up
what
there.
Society thinks a person should do.
Like whether
Boy
you
Scouts have a buddy system, everything. It's like solo hunter is not that.
We talked about whether you should do some like, except for this hunt, all your other hunts are public land.
Yeah,
basically. Yeah. And
I've done I did one private land in Colorado, which we talked about, and then my Aoudad sheep. But that's the case where it's like there might be some sheep there might not,
right.
But you have our permission to go look.
Right.
It was one of those deals.
But it
was hard.
You're mostly just targeting all this public land stuff. So as you're getting into the public land, and then you come over here and you do Oklahoma's one of those places where it's not.
Right.
It's a lot different having spent some time on public land hunts and private land hunts. There's a huge difference, Tim. Yeah, you're not making life any easier going on a public land hunt.
If I'm down hunting one of these public land tracks in Oklahoma, I'm not having as good of a time. Fortunately, I have Jeremy and the connection that everything worked out that we could find this small piece. And for a whitetail lease, 300 acres is not
tiny.
In Oklahoma, it's not that significant. There's places where other people lease a lot smaller tracks than that. But when you have a group of guys hunting 320 acres, it gets small real fast.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know why. Public land is just the attraction for me. That's what I cut my teeth on. That's what we grew up on. And we've talked about it before. I definitely make my job a lot harder by staying hard and fast to unguided and on public land, for sure. There's a reason why TV people do the hunts that they do because,
well, first of all,
it's not easy to produce. No. It's hard, and you got a lot of pressure on you, and all of a sudden, those
and there's a lot of
private
shows
hunts become very attractive.
Well, with TV culture in general, hunting TV culture in general, there's a if there's not an animal harvested, then there's no show.
Well, and unfortunately, it gives a false impression. It gives a false image of what the majority of the hunting lifestyle really is, because I'm a firm believer that the majority of the hunting lifestyle, the hunting community, and we're not talking industry, we're talking individuals in the community that you go to church with, school with, work with, whatever else. They're out there doing public land, over-the-counter tags on the weekends. They spend their time off. Their vacation time goes towards family reunions and hunting. You know. I feel like that's where the majority is. And so me as someone that is that's representing hunting, that's what I want to represent is the bulk of hunting. If I did something else, it wouldn't be true to me. And it's that what other hunts are, private land hunts or landowner tags or any of those other kind of things, that still represents a segment of hunting that is an important segment of hunting. Yeah. It's just not the segment that I need to. So I'm a team player for this side. Other people are team players for this side. And the outfitters need business and need work, guides. It's great. They're there for a reason. They're there because some people don't have the time. To put into public land hunts.
Not done it before, and this is a great way to go out with somebody who can.
Right.
A lot of people say, I don't have anybody to hunt with. Where can I find a hunting partner? And there's a lot of people in that boat that are like, just got a bow this year, are hunting a little bit, and are absolutely lost and have no friends to hunt with, and they're like, I'm just gonna buy this guided service, which is a great service. We've talked about it before. I totally love Bart Lancaster, having hunted with him this year for mountain goat, and just the guy's phenomenal. And watching him and learning from him,
Bart, man,
you learn so much. Private land has its place. I love private land. So do outfitters, like you said. But it's hard to beat.
Well, it has
the reward or the feeling you get when you hunt public land.
It has its limitations, though, too.
Yeah, we talked about that when my buck ran over to the edge of private property and you couldn't go any further after it. Yeah. There's things like that.
The buck you shot here, how close were we to that fence line?
Oh, right. Close.
Yeah. So.
We were worried about him crossing it.
You better put him down.
Yep. And thankfully he didn't hop the fence. Those are real issues with private land. They all have their thing, but the point on this, you know, you don't do very many of these kind of hunts in your history of solo hunter and your own hunting life.
Right.
But this one piece is that little piece, and it's kind of nice because it's small and you get to make the rules, you know, and hunt it how you want to hunt it, and you know no one's going to come in there while you're in there.
Well, I'm lucky. My partner's on it. I mean, Jeremy hasn't killed a deer in years. Stacy, he's as picky as it all gets, and now he's got his place in camp. So my partners don't care for it, really. I'm like, why are you guys even – and they might not be next year. You know, I might be looking for somebody else. But it's like I've had it all to myself because I'm like I'm not that picky, and yet I am. But it's like –
and let's talk about this because from my perspective, I saw like just deer every day, morning, evening, afternoon. Like it was hot activity. For the first few days, I was like, wow. I mean, I keep seeing big bucks for me come and go, grunting, chasing deer, running everywhere, checking for does. They just make their rounds. And
it was never chasing my direction because all I saw was little bucks.
You did, but the thing is you actually saw quite a few nice bucks. But again, my perspective and what I get excited by is totally different than where you're at. I've only hunted whitetail. This is my second time.
Yeah, on that piece. But like I say, you put me in a public corner somewhere, killing the first buck that walks by, you know?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Well, so but do you also like, for me, like, I just like to go and film and watch and do it regardless of whether or not I've got a tag in my pocket. And I think that's, you know, it's just how I'm wired. And so Anthony and Ben are really similar where we don't want the hunt to end. And there's a little bit of sadness when we finally pull the trigger. We're happy, but then it's like, especially if you've booked like, you know, 14 days of time off from work and you kill something on day 3, there's something about that a lot of guys are like, yes. And I'm like,
home,
man, then Anthony mentioned this years ago. He's like, the ideal hunt would be you work your butt off, there's highs and lows, and then you just kill, you know, you tag out with something that you're so thrilled with on the last hours of the last day.
Yeah. Well, I kind of
because then you got the maximum hunting experience, and then you achieved your goal.
I joke with my circle, mostly my brother, pretty much. When I talk about my circle,
it's pretty small.
It's like this.
It's more like a linear line.
It's like a twofer. But it's like, you know, all these hunting shows, and myself included, is like, I killed on the last day, you know.
Yeah.
I was able to. But it's because the last day, then you're going home, you know, whether that was the second day of the hunt or not, it's over. So to be able to stretch it out, and again, it helps to have the time. But, you know, I can't imagine just killing on the first day every time, because then it's like, oh, well, now what? You know?
Yeah. I mean, I look back on this hunt and all my hunts this year, and I'm like, okay, if I had tagged out here, I'd have missed out on this, and this that happened. And I'm really glad that I experienced those things.
And if you've got another hunt lined out that you're going to and you can get to it as quick as possible or whatever.
Yeah.
But like I say, it's whatever floats your boat, whatever gets you excited.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. You know, so we roll up. It's opening day rifle, and we got our bows and our rifles in the stands, and it's a super windy day.
Yeah, it's
like gnarly windy, and it's cold because of the wind.
Yeah.
And so we climb up in these tree stands, and we're hunting a pretty open space out in front of us, so you can see a long way. And we're on a tree line, and we're visible to each other. How many yards are we apart?
We were 320 yards apart or something like that. I think I ranged it.
So we climb up in the stand. The sun's coming up, and I've never hunted this spot. I hunted just in
You're in the tree that I killed
thicket.
my big buck out of last year, my big 8.
Yeah, on this morning.
Yep.
I go out there, and I'm sitting in that tree, and the wind is like trying to knock me out of the tree. I don't know how fast what was it?
It was 30-mile-an-hour winds with up to 40, 50-mile-an-hour gusts is what the AccuWeather said. It was ugly.
So
I figured out really quick that it wasn't going to happen out of the tree. That's why I climbed down.
Trying to shoot it with a rifle or a bow.
You couldn't have done it.
It was like the tree was just moving all over.
Yeah. Well, I like to hang my stands in those, what are they, crab apples? What are they called? Jeremy has a name for I don't even know what they're called. I'm terrible. But it's a black tree that's out there. Those suckers
gnarly bark.
Yeah, they're brutal. I mean, my hands are all cut up from them. But I like those trees because they're super stiff. So I didn't get as much of it, but even just
your
holding
tree
the
was
gun up,
massive.
the wind is blowing. Yeah, we call it the bitch tree just because it was. For years, I kept telling Jeremy, I'm going to hang a stand in that tree. He's like, you're crazy. That thing will tear you apart. So last year, I spent all afternoon cutting it piece by piece to get up in there because it's just like thorns.
Right.
A thorn. It's like cutting through a thorn bush to get to the tree.
Yeah.
And so it took me, if it didn't take me 4 hours, 6 to 5 hours to cut through all that crap and hang a stand. But once I got it, I was like, "Oh, this place is money." You know? And now it is. Now it's like awesome.
After we're hunting for a while, I saw, a few bucks nearby me and some does. Nothing like 1-year-old stuff. Yeah. And then down your way, though, I saw some buck action. Yeah. Bucks running around.
It's kind of a special point where they like to come out.
There seemed to be a doe or two that were in heat over there. A doe at least. And so.
But your corner, I'd never hunted your corner before. That's Jeremy's spot where he always hunted.
Yeah.
And then.
That corner was hot the first three days of that season. And then even later, I mean, I was impressed with.
I want to be back there earlier in the season, when the foliage is still up and when the bucks are. Because those rubs and stuff, I guarantee those bucks are in that general area just before daylight or just at dark.
And they're eating.
I want to be in there.
The oaks are in there, and they're eating all the
good acorn crop this year.
There.
Seemed like they were picking acorns like crazy.
They're eating.
Choking them up.
They're making some noise.
So those acorns weren't in. I think they go every other year in that area. Is what I was told. I don't. Again, I'm not a.
Yeah.
Was that a botanist? I don't know. That's a detail that I don't.
Arborist?
It won't fit in here,
So I think
arborist cuts trees.
Do they?
I am an arborist. Turns out by the time I cut
botanist.
down that tree.
So basically, though, they in the timber was sweet.
It was awesome.
But with a rifle, it's like if you're going to take advantage of that opportunity, it's nice to be out in this open space.
Right.
So we did that. Well,
because what'll happen is the bucks won't always go to the destination fields. They will if they're desperate. They'll follow the does out to the wheat or the alfalfa or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if they're not, they'll kind of hang back and wait for them. And then that's when it gets awesome is when the does catch on to it in that property.
Yeah.
Then they'll start bedding down out in front.
For people to understand, there's like bedding area that's all trees. And then there's an open void in between of like grass. And then there's farmers, ag fields and crops.
Correct. Yeah.
So the does make it to those ag fields, feed throughout the night. And then they're like, okay, sun's coming up. It's time to get back to.
They actually go through the timber for the most part and into the dunes. There's sage covered dunes and grass covered dunes, and they get back in there.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll go back a long ways. We're talking a couple miles that they'll go back in there.
So these deer like to move from those ag fields through these areas. So we're basically hunting them on their way to and from.
Right. And that's when you want to be there. It's the magic. It's when the does start popping, and then they start getting chased around and harassed by all these young bucks, and they're like, "Screw that! I'm not going back in there." So they'll get out of the ag fields and get into that CRP and the plum thickets and everything. Mm-hmm. They'll start bedding down in that stuff, and they'll start spreading out too. They'll kick their fawns off, and they're like, "Get away from me! I'm hiding." And the old does, I mean, they catch on to the game early. It's like they go to the scrapes. They're like, lay down their scent. The bucks find them first. They get it. Wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. They're done. They move on. They go back to eating. It's the young does that have never experienced it before that are like, this. I don't like this game. This isn't very fun. They're the ones that you see running around like crazy with the yearlings on their butt, because they don't know to just stand there, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's what these does are doing is hiding out, and then the bucks will come out and wait for them. And when the does don't start coming through the timber, they're like, what the heck? Where are they? And then that's when they start getting nervous and going up and down the tree line. And the next thing you know, they're out in the open, out in these plum thickets, running around looking for whatever they can find, and that's when it gets awesome out there because it's like you can see it, and you can just pinpoint them, and you might just stay put. That buck might be all clear on the other side, and you might see him circle all the way around. Next thing you know, 30 seconds later, he's right under you.
They move. Yeah. Yep.
It's fun. It's a fun time.
It is fun, and so being part of that was just a cool experience. And I on that day we climbed out of the tree stand. It was kind of slow. You were saying that this isn't. There's been some die off from disease and some things like that. There was some
and our timing. I mean, I hit it the same week every year because typically you hunt the teens in Oklahoma.
It was hot, dude.
Typically this
weather
week is phenomenal,
brutal.
But it was like 4 or 5 days behind,
Yeah.
And in those areas, in my experience, I don't know if it's biologically true or not. Who cares? Whatever. But it's no different than roommates or anything else. When one doe pops, they all kind of pop at the same time, And so it's like this, and that's what happened to us. Is we got there, the does were still with fawns. They were, not even really coming, and then all of a sudden, after we're there for 2 or 3 days. You notice the activity just died.
Yeah.
Well, all those does popped,
Yeah.
And so every buck with any maturity at all was on a doe, and they were breeding.
Yeah, they found what they needed.
And it wasn't until
you weren't seeing any big mature bucks moving anymore.
No, not at all.
They were just done.
In fact, the buck that you killed, I filmed him topping that doe 3 times, and right out in the middle of the open.
It looked like
they're trying to get it done as quick as they can because they know there's so many does coming into heat.
Right. It looked like with that buck that he'd probably finished up with a different doe and was just cruising around and intercepted this one.
Because he was by himself at first, wasn't he?
Yeah, I spotted him coming out of the trees, and I was like, "Whoa, that looks like a good deer." Of course, I can't tell a good one from a not so good one. Yeah. I'm like, they're all good, but he shoots into the field in the opening, and I'm like, "Oh, that's a good deer." So I rattled to him, and he's wired tight, man. He stops in his tracks. Hears that rattle and freezes and looks, and he's behind a big thicket, a wall of trees. So,
which I can't see him. Because I got those. I've been meaning to get a chainsaw and cut those suckers down. He's blinded to my view where he was at.
So I'm like, oh, he's hearing me now. So I grab that rattle bag and I'm like, and I hit those horns again. And there's a gap between the trees where if he's 50 yards further ahead, he can look down the gap and see what's there.
Right.
The dude's standing there, and I hit those horns, and he hauls butt to that gap, full speed.
To where he could see you?
To where he could see me.
Really?
From behind the trees, because I could see him through the trees with my binos. Yeah. I hit that, and he says, and he hits the gap, and he just looks right at me, like wired, like coming for a fight. And I was like...
Of course, you had the camera rolling on that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I failed on that. But I'm sitting there typical with the rattle bag in hand, feeling caught red-handed. He is looking... Now, granted, I'm 200 and something yards away.
A ways away, yeah.
But he's looking right at the tree where the sound came from.
They got a dial,
and I think he looked right at it, and he's like, yeah, no, deer don't rattle from trees.
He's like, I hear something over there, but I smell something over here. Yeah. I'm going over here.
So he turned and he ran back over, and it turns out he popped out right where you could see him.
Yeah, I saw him cross that clearing.
And when he came out of my view, he went into your view.
Yep.
And then...
Well, that doe was in that thicket. He pushed her out of that thicket.
And then he mounted her a few times.
As quick as he could. It was like he's like, yes, let's make this happen now, baby. There was no courtship. It was just like, stand, please. But she was obviously ready because she stood. She didn't fight it off or nothing. A lot of times
they'll run
that's
around.
The chasing
I'm
process.
not ready.
A lot of times the chasing is just the young bucks chasing the does that have either already been bred, so they still have that scent to them, or they're not ready yet, and the big bucks, once they know they're ready, And that was really neat.
So you filmed him do that.
Oh, and he was chasing off that other buck.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool.
Then he ran. Oh, him and the doe went out of sight.
Yeah, as soon as they went out of sight, that's when I called you and said, I'm getting down. I can't shoot anything out of this. Because I had the gun on him, And had it been more stable, like I had the safety clicked off, and I'm thinking, yeah, I could shoot him. And then he turned his head, and the doe was standing right next to him. I'm like, oh, it's a good thing I didn't pull the trigger, Even though you have doe tags too, but I was like, that just would have been ugly.
Not the most ethical.
On camera. Yeah, it just would have been ugly. There's a lot that can go wrong there. So then they go off around the thicket, and I'm like, all right, I got to get down. No matter what, whether I go after that buck or not, I got to get down because I can't kill anything. So I think I texted you like 8:30, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm getting down.
And I had sat there in the stand and tried to be creative on a rifle rest, and I was testing things out, and I'm like, this is impossible. Yeah. So I texted you and said, I'm going to go hunt to go back to the trees. Or maybe I didn't text you. I just got down to move.
I think I called you on the phone.
You did.
And you're like, yeah, I'm going to go back in the back and get out of this.
Well, actually, I was already almost to the tree stand.
Oh, you were?
Or the blind. There's a ground blind back there. Yeah. And I'm like, today's wind, I need to be out of a tree. So I started making my way over there. And then you texted me or called me and said, hey.
Well,
and I was like, you told me that deer, because I asked you earlier,
saw your text after. How big is that deer?
How big is that deer? Because from where I was at, I couldn't see. And I didn't want to shoot him if he wasn't, right there within that piece of property. You don't want to shoot the young deer. You didn't want to snipe him out from underneath me either. Yeah. Plus, he was we had a little a barrier. Like if the deer are on one side of it, Tim gets.
Because you had already rattled a buck away from me, tried to rattle a buck away from me before.
No. You did. I looked at that deer, and from that distance, I could tell Tim won't shoot that deer. He's good enough for me.
There's no way I could see him. He was like 50 yards from me, but there's no way I could see that he was there. Yeah. Because I hear this rattle going off. I'm like, what the crap?
He was right under you.
Yeah.
So anyway, buck comes. Anyway, on this one, we link up.
Well, so I texted you and said, I'm going to get out. I'm going to sit here and see if this buck comes out of the thicket. We talked or whatever. And then I started thinking, I'm like, I better double check and see. Because I had turned my head. I had the camera rolling on him, and I had turned my head to do something else. And when I turned back, he was gone. Mm-hmm. So I was like, crap, well, I'm pretty sure I saw him go into that thicket. And so then I'm getting down, and I'm on the ground after I talked to you. And I'm like, I better double check and see. Because if he took off somewhere else, I might be sitting here all day for nothing. Mm-hmm. So I watched the video back, and sure enough, he went into the thicket and then came right back out and circled around the backside and took off. And so then I was like, well, the only way to get after this deer is we're going to have to go up on foot. And I thought, so I'm gathering all my stuff together. I'm like, I'm going to call Brian, because if there's two of us up there, we got a lot better chance. So that's when I called you back and said, let's come over here. Don't go back in the back. If you want to try a chance at killing this buck, let's go this way.
Yep. So we met up, and then we devised the game plan, and we did a pincher attack.
It was a flanking attack. I went upwind, you went downwind.
And basically, we actually both came up.
We met at the buck.
The buck, within 80 yards each.
Yeah. Well, I was 40 yards, 50 yards from the buck when he was bedded.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was halfway through that grass when I looked up. I was like, I'm too close. There he is right there. So I actually backed away back to the cedar.
So I came up from the opposite side, and I got to a spot where I was like, okay, I need to spend some time here glassing, because this is where we're pretty sure you went.
Yeah.
So if he's not in this space, he's in that timber thicket.
I had seen him go up. I had seen bucks in the past go up in there, and Jeremy used to have a box blind up on that front.
Okay.
Because he could
kind of had a feel for
under it because he's lazy that way. So he'd all the times tell me about bucks that had bed down in the grass, and he had video. We got some video of that 8-point that his wife killed that did the exact same thing. They pushed those does up in there, and maybe it's the does that take the bucks up there. I don't know how that works. Either way, they get away from everything else, and they're just in this grass that's 3 feet tall. 2.5, 3 feet tall.
So when we went up there, I'm sitting there, I'm getting ready to scan the place, and I look over, and I see you, and you're like right there, and like between us.
I could tell you were not looking right there. You were looking way over on the hill or something.
Well, and when you said right there, I'm like,
did you see me go 55?
I did. 55. And I'm going 55 yards?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, where? And I got the binos up, and I'm trying to stand up. Now, I don't want to be the guy that blows this thing, right? But I'm like, if it's where Tim says he is, I should be able to see this thing. He must be in this grass.
There must have been something in front of you because I figured you could see him because you were higher than I was.
Yeah, there was just another hill between us that blocked him from view. I'd have to when I crested, he probably would see me.
The doe would have seen you because she was out in front.
Yeah, and so it was a good thing I didn't. So then you're like, come over here, and so. I was thinking, you had the camera set up on the buck.
Oh, if he would have stood up.
And you had your gun ready, and I thought you were going to shoot it, so I was just going to sit there and film. And I was looking for it. I was like, if I can see it, and after a few minutes, you're like, come on over here.
Well, because I got to thinking, I'm like, it's not quite what I've shot in the past, you know? You saw the buck first, you know? You're my guest. Like, I felt like it would have been kind of a dick move for me to shoot that deer. I do. And honestly,
I wouldn't have felt that way at all.
Well, in my mind, I'm thinking, I honestly think that I will be happier if Brian shoots this deer. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I'd be happy shooting this deer, but what would really make me happy is if Brian was able to get over here and shoot this deer. So that's when I've just kind of made the decision, like, come shoot this deer.
It was cool because when I got over there, sure enough, buck is bedded right there, and he looked like he was going to stand up like 2 or 3 times and just catch us standing there.
Did you see him lower his head?
Uh-huh.
Like, I think he heard us talking, and then he was like, but the way he was laying, he had to have laid his head down frontwards, like with his chin on the ground.
If he heard us talking... Because he got up to check the doe later, long story short, later on, and he didn't have a clue we were there. He was calm as can be.
I think he had forgotten because before you got there, I actually whistled once. And he's like...
He was when I was creeping up on him, you pulled the gun up like 3 times because...
I thought he was going to stand up. I didn't want him to get away.
And he was, and I wasn't ready to shoot him.
No, I didn't. I thought he was going to get away. And then you got there, and I set my gun down, and then he'd move, and I'd grab my gun.
Because I was getting the tripod set up so I could rest the gun on there and make sure I made a good shot.
Which I'm glad you did.
And then I got all set up, and we were like, what do you want to do? And I said, well, let's just let him stand up on his own at first as I was coming up, and then later you're like, what do you want to do? And I was like... And I think you might have said he could be there all day, or this could be a long wait.
Well,
I can't remember.
It just depends. I mean, you never know if the wind's going to switch. You never know if they know you're there and they just.
And I was sitting there thinking the same thing. Like in this case, I would rather him kind of stand up out of curiosity or make some noise. It's so windy that I didn't think they'd just bolt out of their bed. I think he'd stand up and look, and I only needed a second.
You didn't give him much time.
I'm on a rest. I only need a second to shoot him.
I was hoping you'd give him more time, but
dude, no.
He was up for less than 2 seconds, and then he was shot. Yeah. It took me by surprise. I was walking back to you to regroup because I walked around trying to get him to stand up and came back.
So yeah, I mean, you're standing next to me, and I take that shot. But the thing is when he stood up, I didn't want to, I've just been in this position before where they stand up and bolt.
See you and they're gone.
Yeah, like it just takes a second, or a doe freaks or whatever.
Well, you didn't give him any time for that.
He stood up, and I was like, crosshairs were right where they needed to be, and I started to slowly press the trigger. And anyway, he was quartering away a little bit, but I was like, I'm not waiting. I mean... You could. I have a rifle.
It's a good shot. I mean, quartering away in behind the ribs, out in the armpit, Yeah. And so I was standing out there like a turd, wide open, because I was walking back to you. And when he stood up and got hit, he immediately locked onto me because I'm in the wide open. And that, I think, gave him an adrenaline rush. And he was not going to stand. And then
I was like, what, 60, 70? Was I 70, 80 yards from him?
You were 55 yards from him. I ranged it,
Okay,
Brian.
so 55 yards.
That's why I was saying 55 yards.
So when he jumped up, I was trying to eject the shell.
Yeah.
But I had to be quiet because you don't want to just go ching because he has no clue what happened. Right, he just hunches up and he looks
Had
really
he not
bad.
seen me, he would have stood there like, that hurt.
Yeah,
but he saw me,
and I'd have got the second shot loaded. But
just gone.
if I'd have jerked the shell fast and reloaded, I was so close and he didn't know, so I kind of pulled it back carefully. If I'd have got the new shell in before he bolted, but he saw you. I saw him look at you and was like, oh, and he just
dude, you can see his body just ridge up and go. Which, I'm guilty when you think of. In fact, don't listen to the audio of that, please. So I'm like, are you kidding me? When that deer ran off, and I had the lapel on because it was my camera that filmed it, so I had my wireless. I'm like, are you kidding me? 50 yards, and the deer runs off. Like, I full on expected when the gun went off, I expected that deer to just, because it's a gun at 55 yards, but it's because you didn't hit any bone. It just went through and just annihilated his innards, but it just...
We looked at the innards.
Without taking bone...
We looked at the innards, and I was like...
They can go.
I don't know how long he could have stood there.
Not long, dude. He would have been...
I think he probably lived...
Seconds.
30 seconds?
Well...
60 seconds, maybe?
They get that adrenaline rush, and
but if I had just shot him the once and nothing spooked him... right where he was standing, I think he'd have flopped over.
Yeah, 10 seconds. Yeah.
But when he saw you, dude, he bolted, but he crashed.
Well, because I was 30 yards from him when he saw me. So I'm sure that was not I mean, I am an imposing figure, but especially to a buck that's not expecting to see a pumpkin standing there. It's like, oh.
Well, I mean, you're not far from me, but still, it's yeah.
It was fun. It was cool, but yeah, don't listen to the audio. When I send that to you, don't listen to it. I might have complained about you not making taking him down right away, but I don't remember. So,
well, when you see a deer get hit like that,
I cursed. I'll tell you that. I cursed.
Well, I expected him to drop too.
Yeah,
like just a sack. I've shot a few animals. I was shooting the Kimber 270 short mag, and I've shot a bunch of animals with that now, and I have not had one not drop. Yeah. Just like a sack of potatoes.
Well, it's. You missed shoulder by that far. Had you? That's with a gun. I always try to take bone if you can.
If you hit the rib cage and stuff.
As it was, you didn't ruin any meat, so perfect.
No,
mission accomplished. Except for my liver.
Yeah, I was still surprised though. I still was surprised that he didn't just pile up. Yeah. But I also wonder too, Tim. I haven't shot anything with that at 50 yards.
It's not making any difference if you're 0 to 100 or whatever.
No, I mean in terms of the mushrooming of the bullet, or I don't know much about guns other than they kill effectively.
All I know is when we opened him up, I was shocked that he covered that distance.
Dude, the inside was absolute,
lungs, liver, because it was like quartering away lung. It's just the way it is.
Yeah,
it was fun, and we got cool footage.
It is a little nerve-wracking when they run away after a shot.
Yeah, I was like, well, because you don't know where you hit them at the time.
Right.
At the time, I thought gut shot, and so that's where I was like, all right, let's get up to the top of the hill because if he's standing there, we need to take him out. So we hustled to the top of that ridge where he went over, which wasn't very far.
Yeah,
wasn't in sight, and so I was like, all right. There's blood right there. Let's just Let's just go get our backpacks because stupid Brian, left his backpack way over there. I had just told him, don't leave your pack.
Yes.
Which is funny because you just showed me the film that you're going to release soon.
I know. Oh, and I know. Like, believe me.
You didn't learn from that Hell's Canyon trip that you never drop your pack.
I have. The thing is, I like to drop my pack actually. When everything's flat and the total acreage is 300 acres. I don't care. I can walk back any of those places.
Doesn't matter.
When it's 3,000 vertical feet and miles, I don't leave a pack.
What if your stomach hits you and you had to just go really fast and you didn't have your paper or anything?
I just go without the paper.
Nah, screw that. No. I take off my pack to get food out of it or to take a dump. That's it. And other than that, it's back on my back. I never take that dump.
I've been known to hunt all day without a pack.
Really?
No water, no food, all day long.
Really? I just like having it on. It's a comfort thing for me. I just like it.
I can handle not drinking water all day, and I can handle not eating any food all day.
No. I'm a precision machine. I need food and water.
I think it's probably a lot to do with like the sort of paleo keto.
Maybe you're not hunting tough enough hunts.
Diet.
Maybe you need to hunt a little rougher terrain.
Yeah, that's it. No, I mean, seriously, I think when I eat so much fat and everything, I'm good at burning fat. So when I don't eat, I burn fat pretty well. So I got my own.
You sustain your energy longer when
I do.
You're all in that ketosis.
When I was a pretty heavy carb dude, yeah, I would get hangry after an hour or two.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun hunt. Anyway,
it was, and I got my second whitetail ever, and I want to do it again, man. It was
money talks.
It was a fun
money talks. There might be a spot open on the lease.
So
this year, the way it went down is we did a hunt giveaway that I was gonna have somebody come this year, and turns out the person that was drawn didn't want to come this year, and so I had made all arrangements and had the additional spot, on the lease for just set aside for that, and so there was an availability there, so that's why when we were talking, I asked you, and I didn't think you'd say yes. So
I know
when you said yes, I was like,
people learn pretty quick. Like if they're like, "Hey, I want to give you XYZ," I'm all like, "You know what? Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that." I'm not the one that's like, "No, that's too generous." No, and you know why? I went on a mission to Japan, and they give gifts like constantly, and everywhere you go, you meet a new family, you meet new people, or you're leaving an area, and they're gift giving culture, big time. Yep. And when in America, someone gives you something, you're like, "No, I can't take it. That's too much. That's too much." And you kind of do this song and dance, right? And then they're like, Americans are, sometimes they're like, you refuse it and it's fine, or they make you take it, but it's this thing. In Japan, if you say no, it's too generous, you've just crossed the line. Really? You've really offended people. You don't do that. You take the gift. And so one time I was talking to somebody and they said, and I was explaining how this is difficult for me to do. And they said, in our culture, if someone offers you something but never really meant for you to have it, they shouldn't have offered it.
I meant for you to have it. I wouldn't have offered if I didn't want you.
I'm not accusing you of that. I'm just saying.
I guess
that's how I feel with most situations.
I did not expect you to say yes.
But
I wanted you to have it. So when did you hear me get excited?
Yes.
Like after you said yes, and
you were like,
"You know what? This
really?
might work." I was like, "Really? This is awesome. This is great. I've only got a single bed in the hotel room, but this will be great."
Which was an adventure. Oh. Tim slept on his cot.
I was being a nice host, a generous host,
and I was willing to share the bed.
I have hundreds of nights on that cot. The difference is, I thought about that. I'm like, why am I not sleeping well? This is so weird. I've slept hundreds of nights on because I only had one layer of my memory foam. Usually I have 2 layers of it, so I only had one.
Oh, that must be it.
So I slept like crap, and then finally I was like, I don't care, Brian. I'm sleeping in the bed. You either scoot over or sleep on the cot. And then the first night I slept on the bed, I was like, I was so stupid to sleep on the cot for 4 nights.
That's right. Aaron and I have slept on many a bed. We put the giant pillows between us as a barricade.
I'd rather sleep on smaller real estate, but know that I've got protection.
Me too. I don't want anybody,
That's kind of how my wife and I sleep too.
That
we got a king-size bed with like a barrier in between.
That barricade is enough because that size of the bed is bigger than any cot.
The cot size isn't the problem. The cot it wasn't soft enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't soft enough.
It was an adventure staying at the hotel, and we ate some pretty sketchy food.
There is some you know what, though? Where else can you get a plate of food that massive for $8.99?
Dude, I'm telling you, it's because it's mostly...
I can feed my family for $9 every night. I'm moving to Oklahoma. We're just going to eat greasy food for the rest of our lives.
It was bad.
It was...
but I would say...
you know what? I look forward to that, though. Like I was telling you, that this Oklahoma hunt for me, it's almost like a vacation because it comes at a time in my season where it's just like I'm fried, my brain's fried, my body's fried. I'm going to recuperate, enjoy. And Jeremy's a good hang.
And you just get
Stacy's usually there, so it's
just get to sit and chill.
Yeah,
and watch awesome deer run around, and you never know when some stud buck is going to walk right there and rub a tree or mount a doe right in front of you, and then you're going to...
And you're hunting all day, you know, and if you want to get out, you get out. I mean,
we might take an afternoon off and just
I may or may not have snuck out to the Jiffy Trip and got a pizza pocket and a rock star and took a nap one or two of the days. We got to
work on Tim's health plan.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I thought it was it's an
fun.
enjoyable hunt, and I think whitetail hunting it's something here's the thing, like I noticed with a lot of other hunts, okay? They're physically demanding. They're just a grind. You're pushing. There's a combination of like pushing mentally through, and whereas all the whitetail hunts I'm on.
Well, that's because you didn't hunt this property. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
There's a difference between showing up to a place and sitting in a tree stand and killing a deer.
Yes.
That's all part of it. I have 10 years invested into this property.
Right.
Do you know how many trees I have prepped for stands? Do you know how many miles I've covered?
Well, that's like when I hunted blacktails.
How much work and physical effort and scouting and maps and figuring out transition areas and all this stuff. So, like, I've hunted this property for so long that now I don't. Now
but
I
it's
can go there
difficult
and
in
not
a totally different way.
I can go there and enjoy it now. Same as the elk back home, you know.
Yes.
I know where those elk are at. I've hunted it for so many years. I get to go and enjoy it now because the hunting has taken place.
Well, that's how it is with blacktails in Oregon. Like I've done the math. Now I know the place. I know how to work it. I know what's there and how to hunt the
with
deer.
Small variations. And so the
it's
hunting
good years and bad years.
You've hunted it for years. It's not like, so it might not seem physical now, but I guarantee, man, I have busted my butt on that property to just get things set up and all that.
I have a blast out, you know, but tree stand hunting for deer like blacktail and whitetail, it's a different during the rut.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of hunt. It's demanding in a different way, like we talked about yesterday.
Well, if you'd have climbed in my trees, you'd see what demanding is. That hernia, you think that hernia hurts now? If you'd have climbed into my trees, that thing would be.
Dude, I'm telling you, like, but still, those it's not the same as like that elk hunt I did with Anthony and his kids the other day.
Yeah.
It's just a different kind of experience, but equally rewarding.
I think when you go into, whether it's a hunt or a fishing trip or a round of golf on a course you've never played before, no matter what, whenever you go into a situation, you're kind of stereotyping or assessing the situation for the type of experience that you're going to have, you know? So when you go into that elk hunt with the boys and all that, you know you're going to have to cover some miles.
Yeah.
Because this is some big country, it's rugged, whatever. You have that certain level of expectation, so you're prepared for it mentally and physically, right? You go into this whitetail hunt, you have a totally different level of expectation. So, like, everything is so compartmentalized in what we do. You play in this golf course, which is a PGA qualifying course, and you're playing it the day after. You're playing it on Monday,
right?
You know, it's like, you know, this is going to kick your butt, right?
Yeah.
So you have all of this, and that's part of the enjoyment of the experience is that it's different every time. You don't know what to expect. Just like this year, you know, you don't know what to expect. We had no way of knowing that the CRP would be so tall and there'd be bedding, so because a lot of times it's grazed out. You know?
Yeah.
So it's just that's what's so fun about hunting. Even hunts you do year after year, there's always some variation, and the personalities of the bucks or the deer or the elk that you might be chasing are different too. You know,
I think like a lot of Western hunters miss out on the whitetail thing.
Yeah,
and it's kind of a shame because it is so much fun. Just
like a lot of whitetail hunters miss out on the elk and the mule deer.
Exactly.
And whether it's lack of resources or lack of connections or whatever else. Yeah. That's one of the things that I think social media has really been awesome for, is just the connection, you know? I mean, how else do people
get exposed
to different things, right? You know, I mean, you get invitations to go to Australia or New Zealand or Tennessee or Alabama to hunt whitetail. You're all of a sudden now you're exposed to things that you wouldn't have otherwise been exposed to if you just had your little circle of friends at the diner, you know, or at the bow shop.
Yeah,
that's what's really cool about social media. Probably one of the few cool things about social media. But
Well,
it also keeps it interesting, keeps it alive.
We have some cool video of this trip. So
when are we going to crank this out? We got to think about that.
Yeah, we got to plan that out, and it's cool to share some of that video because there's some neat stuff that goes on.
I know I laid it down. I haven't seen much of your footage yet, but I know I laid it down.
I'm gritty, so it's it is what it is.
Well, I take advantage. I'm like, the odds of a buck that I cruising. So I'm just like, I'm a cameraman first.
Yeah.
And then where I'm set up, I got enough time to.
No, I look like a clown. I'm like, camera here, camera there, camera here, trying to chase these bucks that are running through. Where if I could just shoot one without running the camera.
You have to just when you get that first glance, you're like, shooter, not shooter. If it's not a shooter, then you have to say, okay.
But shooter. In the timber, it was very unpredictable where they were going to come through.
Yeah.
And too many times they came behind me or there's tree. So setting up, if you're running a camera, is different than setting up to shoot.
So, but now when you come back next year,
I know better.
You know exactly where they're coming from, theoretically.
Yep.
You know how to set up for it. Just like the places I go, it's like I know I'm not going to look these directions because it probably ain't. So
right, so you can keep that camera in the right place. The other thing too is a wider lens at the bottom end because 24 is wide, but 18's that much better.
Well, here's my advice to filming whitetails, whatever, is make sure that if you have a lens, like say, to me, 35 millimeters ideal. So if you had a 35 millimeter prime that you could film with so that you're not zooming in and out, you just know that this is what it's going to be. Like that would be awesome because then I feel like that makes it easiest. If you're not worrying about zooming in, zooming out and focus, that makes filming out of a tree stand solo. That makes it easy.
I had the 35.
But it's really cool.
Prime and I ran it.
Like I had my 18 to 250, so it's really awesome to be able to zoom way in and do all this kind of cool stuff with it. But if you're a beginner and just filming your hunts with a DSLR, which a beginner should never do, that's what I would recommend as a 12 to 35 or something like that. So.
What I noticed was a few times if I had a wider angle lens, then I wouldn't have needed to let the draw down and shift the camera a little bit.
What were you had the 18 or the 24?
24.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's pretty wide. It's just that in the timber it was tight. Whereas when I moved out on the tree line, I was like, wow, I got all this real estate. I can just leave the camera there or I turn it here and I got all of that.
See, that's where we're different. I like to track the animal just as though I'm the regular cameraman. And then when they get to my shooting lanes, then I let go and go for the bow.
But if that's a shooter and he's coming through the timber on a little narrow trail.
Filming him.
And then he walks past you.
Huh? He walks past me, I turn and film him, and then I'm like.
You didn't shoot him.
Whether I did or not,
That's the hard part.
They're going to stop.
That's the hard part.
And if they didn't stop, then I'm going to
This one did not stop. He just went right on through.
Then I'm going to be like, meow, meow. And he's going to be like.
And then he bolts.
What's that? And the whole time he's going, what's that? That's when I get my bow in my hand and I draw back and I stick it right between his shoulder blades.
That works great. And sometimes it works. And other times they run. You forgot the part where they bolt.
Well, let's just say you've seen the ones that I've killed on camera, but you haven't seen the ones that I've not shot on camera. Because if they just keep walking, then it wasn't.
No, we talked about that. There is a certain dedication you have to the film and the in that aspect of the hunt because when you're sitting there filming a deer and it made a lot of sense to me to do camera first and then shoot the deer.
Yeah.
Right? And it takes a lot of patience, and that's what I started doing the last few days after having that discussion because I forced a couple of times where I'm trying to get a bow at the same time in my hand while I'm trying to film. And had I just filmed it and been patient and been willing to let him walk away, he probably would have just kept milling around in that spot and hanging out. And then I could have got the bow and had a real non-rush shot. And instead, I'm trying to get the camera there. I'm risking being seen because I think he's going to leave and the doe's keyed up. And
you've got other deer around you too. That makes a big difference. That's
lots of deer.
Different scenario. That's the hard thing with there being so many acorns on the ground.
Dude, when I was there the other day, I think at one time the most I had was 5 does and 4 bucks,
really?
All within 30 yards.
See, if they start bugging me, I chase them away. I spook them off. It's like, I don't want you hanging out here. I want the buck to come through, and when he comes through, I don't want to have you looking over my shoulder. So I pulled my tripod out of my backpack the one day, and I'm like, Kaloosh! So that they thought it was just a limb, trotted off like it was nothing. Like, I don't want deer hanging around me.
Well, the problem there is, what if
a
couple of those does had like really black tarsal glands, and we're all keyed up, and the bucks were chasing them, young bucks?
They came on fast because when we first got there, everything was white.
Like I don't want a doe in heat to leave. I'm like, hey, she's my best lure I've got. So
I wonder what I don't know the biology behind it, but it seemed like they went from
nothing,
no sign of
in heat
at all to within a day of just all of a sudden everything's.
Dude, that one buck that came in that he went through my spot like 6 times and wasn't stopping for nobody. Yeah. And then when he went out in the field, he did all this weird rutting stuff out there. And,
that's typical for those young deer,
dude.
though.
He wasn't, he was 3 years old.
Yeah, 2, 3.
He was 3.
Probably 2.5.
Maybe. I'll have to show you the video.
We kill a lot of 3.5-year-old deer because that's about all the bigger they're going to get because the neighbor's going to hammer them.
Oh, dude.
We get some 4 and 5 year. I think that 8-point I killed last year had to have been 5 or 6-year-old deer.
We got to check out.
He was a hoss. By far the biggest bodied deer I've killed out there.
Well, that's one thing I noticed was there were no bucks that were.
We had to die off, and then you can't.
The biggest deer that I saw this week was the one I shot.
Yeah. Same.
Same for you?
Same. I think he was that buck that I saw that first day from a distance. I think that was him. Mm-hmm. It might not have been.
Got to go back and look at the video.
Very similar size and shape, but we never saw. Normally I get out there, and within a day or two, within 2 or 3 days, it's like I see something that gets me giddy, that's like, oh gosh, it's on. And then I lose focus on everything else because it's like once he's there, it's exciting because we're not growing these deer. It's like he could be there. Mm-hmm. He might not be there tomorrow.
It's so really tough to make a judgment call there because you can't tell. For me, like I'm looking at all these mule deer racks, right? And I'm familiar with a blacktail rack and age class, but I have a difficult time judging a whitetail age class. Is this a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old?
And then you pull up Instagram and you're looking at all these whitetail and you think that everything's a giant. And then you start looking at it. It's like, well, crap, they're sitting 3 feet behind it, or it's a wide angle lens or whatever. Like nobody ever shows anything for what it is. That's why when I was taking the photos, I was like, all right, put your butt right here and the rack's right here because I want them both the same. I'm like,
same distance.
Like you said, it is what it is. Own it, and it's a great buck. So be proud of it. I just feel like people just discredit the animal or something by doing. And I've been guilty of it in the past. You want it to look as good as it can, but
I think there's a difference though between showing, trying to highlight the beauty of that subject and all that, and taking quality shots of it, and then taking shots that deliberately just make it look stupid big, and it's complete false representation of
elk are notorious. I mean, how many people think that an elk weighs 2,000 pounds and has a rack that's 6 feet tall? Man, it's funny.
Yeah,
I agree. Though I really try to sit really right next to the rack,
proud of
and just
what
get
it is.
Right with it. I try to get right there, and there's pride in what I've killed,
right?
And it's just that's my opinion.
I hear you.
I'd like to ban wide angle lenses from the hero shots.
Good luck with that.
That's me just being cynical. I just notice it's dark outside and I have a long drive.
You do.
So I'm starting to get cynical.
You got to roll, man. You got to get going. Head home.
Appreciate it. What else? Did you want to cover anything else real quick before we cut out?
No, I think you need to maybe. So, what do you got on YouTube right now? What's your latest season?
Latest season is 7, which aired on television in 2016 and was actually filmed in 2015.
Okay.
Which is crazy long time ago. All of 2016 hunts, which is last fall, and season 8 is available on All Access, but because of network contracts and different things, we can't release it publicly outside of our own website until I think after the first of the year I can start to trickle those out onto YouTube. Yeah.
And so All Access.
Yep.
What's that?
So All Access is our subscription membership package. So there's a lot of things that a person gets with All Access. They get our complete video library, digital video library. So there's videos that are not on YouTube, videos that have never been seen on the Outdoor Channel, some web exclusives.
Okay.
There's a lot of content.
So
there's some quick tips, all kinds of little things there.
So the whole library is all in one place.
Yeah.
And it's a subscription.
It is. It's $48 for the year. With that, you get 20% off for that year on any Solo Hunter merchandise in the store. We're working on a welcome package that we can include into that, so not to increase the price, but we're working on something to include in there with that. But really, if you look at purchasing DVDs, even at $5 a DVD for my entire library, it's right at that price. And then you get the 20% off, but you're also entered into the giveaways. So we gave away this whitetail hunt that a guy will be going on next year. We're giving away a prime bow this month. Next month might be, it'll be something else.
So people can get a lot of cool inside stuff when they join the All Access.
So,
But whether
this stuff will be trickled out publicly,
I was going to say, the cool thing too, though, about your stuff, Tim, is all of it's available for public if people want to just wait for it.
That's just the kicker with television contracts. Every TV show goes through that where there's a delayed. Meat Eater's on Netflix, but it's not all of his new stuff because there's television contracts, I'm assuming, And eventually all that stuff's going to go away. Things are changing. We don't know what's going to come down the pipe a year from now.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I need to have and want to have control of my content and be able to release it whenever I want.
Yeah.
So that's the discussions with the networks of currently, and whether they like it or not, that's yet to be seen.
I would download all the Solo Hunter episodes on VHX after because I was getting those before they come out on YouTube, and because for a few dollars I can support what you do, which I value,
which we appreciate,
and then I get to watch it now instead of waiting until it comes out on YouTube.
Yeah.
Plus, I get to own it on my mobile device, so I can download those and I can just watch them whether I have a cell phone connection or not.
Right.
I like it. But are you still doing VHX?
VHX, they're still available on there. The problem was when I launched the beta platform for All Access, it was all through VHX. Well, they take 25% right off the top.
Right.
So when you're already giving someone a huge value and giving them discount on other merchandise, you're still making some money, but it doesn't make sense at that point.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do that as a tester to see if it was viable and if there was an appetite for that in my customer base. And there was. It was overwhelming demand for it. So as it was continuing to grow, we then started to develop the platform on the website and get that built out. And then once that was ready to go, we released that slowly and casually and then transitioned all of those VHX users over to the website. Now we're in the process of developing an app, which apps aren't cheap, especially video apps that are able to that are able to have live updates. We could get an app built for pretty inexpensive that'll just have the content, and then you have to go in and rebuild it when you add content. But because of the nature of adding videos and podcasts and all other kinds of things, which we did the Soul Hunter podcast as part of that as well, we need to be able to have live updates. So it's a little bit more time-intensive, labor-intensive on the development side, double the money. And so eventually, we're hoping to have that to where everything's downloadable rather than just currently through All Access. It's streaming only.
I ask you this every year, but what is your favorite episode from this last season that was on TV?
My Aoudad hunt, I'm really proud of, just because it's a private land hunt, which is ironic, because I'm a public land advocate. But it's because it hunted harder than a public land hunt. The reason being is the first trip that I went down there with my brother, we saw one ram, and that ram was 5 miles from where we could hunt. We had big tracts of place to hunt, and it's not when I say tracts, it's like, okay, go drive out in southeast Colorado or go drive out in New Mexico, and here's the dirt road, and it ends right here. There's your track. Good luck. Knock yourself out. There may or may not be sheep on there.
I heard it's a hell of a hunt. I saw Renella's episode on it.
Well, yeah, Renella's was more true to form to what mine was than what you normally see on TV, because normally, like
people
the odd
pay
ad,
some access on the ranch.
I'm going to go on an odd ad hunt in February with Riley at the bow shop. Hopefully, we're trying to line that out, and it's a low fence ranch. It's not a high fence ranch by any means, but it's an area where there's lots of sheep. Like, you're going to see hundreds of sheep.
Yeah.
This place down here, when I called the guy, I'm like, I don't want to pay much for it. I'll pay a little bit for it, you know, but I can't pay your fees that you're charging for your odd ad hunts or anything. I'm like, do you have any exploratory properties or any do-it-yourself properties or whatever? And he's like, yeah, we got some properties down here in this area that guys have been able to kill, you know.
Yeah.
On their own or whatever. He gave us the GPS coordinates, little map printout, and said, knock yourself out. So me and my brother go down there and get our butts handed to us in April, and it's 100 degrees in April down there, you know, on the Mexican border. And we had a good hunt. We killed a couple of ewes each, and Boyd killed a javelina with his longbow, and it was fun. And then I called Mike back. It's Mike McKinney. I can't remember the name of his outfit. Sorry, Mike. But he's like, why don't you come back? We'd like to invite you back and see if you can do it again. So I went back and drove back down in November and hunted my brains out and just got lucky and found this ram on a rainy day, because everybody told me don't bother hunting them on a rainy day. And I'm like, well, I'm 20 hours from home, man. It's either stoving up in the back of the Solorado or I'm going to go drive to this property and hike in the rain, which is what I did. And I found just a bomber ram, which according to Mike is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, killed in those areas.
Dang.
You know, in a free range.
I definitely
just a tank.
I want to see. I want to see that season. So you need to help me get some.
Oh, you don't have season 8?
All access.
You bought all access. I set you up for an account on all access.
Okay, I got to go
check your.
You must have done that like the day before you got here.
No, I did it right after you and I talked the other day.
Oh, okay, which was 2 days before you got
here.
Your
password conveniently random is Tim is awesome. Total random generated password.
Right.
In fact, I think Stealthy Hunters was Tim is awesome too. I think so.
Cool.
And then you can.
And there's some podcasts on All Access that aren't public as well.
Correct. So originally the plan was to do teasers publicly, All Access members only for the podcast. But the podcast has become and it's a good marketing arm.
Yeah.
So we're releasing a lot more publicly, and then there's some delay there. Those that are All Access get it week or two ahead of time. Just as the videos will be released out eventually, you know, there's nothing that's exclusive on All Access. Well, there are a few actually, but as far as the episodes go on the podcast, it's unlimited access and exclusive for a short amount of time, and then it's going to go publicly.
That's really cool, man.
It's fun. I appreciate the support of those that have subscribed to that. It's been overwhelming. It kind of just lays true and confirms to you that
what you're doing is there's some valuable to people.
And it's entertaining and it's fun and relatable.
You do a good job, man. This shows. I've always been a fan of Solo Hunter.
Thank you.
No BS. I mean, it's always been something that I thought was well produced and relatable to me and just real. So
thank you.
Keep that up, and I'm excited to see more new episodes.
Yeah, I'm excited to keep diving into this podcast thing. I've kind of enjoyed it. You know, it's funner for me to be on the interview side where I can actually ask the questions and learn about the individual.
Right.
Because I think I mentioned it before. I feel like I'm telling the same stories over and over and over on these podcasts that I've been a guest on. And that's what I like about yours is you and I have known each other long enough now, and this is now our 4th or 5th. Actually, it's the 4th this week, but we've done several podcasts together, so I feel like it's a lot more deeper conversation and more valuable conversation, in my opinion, than just asking about my history and different things.
Well, that's one thing I think for me, and you see this with Renella's podcast too. It's to me, it's hard to have a true and honest conversation, a real meaningful conversation that's just real with a stranger.
It's just
you can.
It can only go.
And there are
so
people that are
deep.
really good at it.
Yeah.
But I feel like the best ones, you see like on Meat Eater or even Rogan, like he'll spend some time with a person.
Yeah.
Before, maybe on a hunt or maybe at a show or maybe at an event and or on the phone even or whatever, but they'll kind of get a foundation there and then they have a conversation. And to me, that's what human interaction is all about.
Yeah.
So it's more honest and more real. It flows. And so I prefer that. That's why I also like to do face-to-face interviews and try to avoid Skype and as much as possible. Yeah. But I don't mind the occasional Skype podcast.
I don't think I'll do them Skype unless I know the person really, really
That's
well.
just it.
Yeah.
If I know the person really well, there's the delay and the electronic divide isn't so big.
Yeah. Well, if they've got the capability to capture the audio there, the good quality audio and stuff,
that's the other hard part. Yeah.
I'm good at that for you.
Yeah.
I remember the first one we did, people were like, how come Brian's video looks like crap and Tim's looks good?
You sucker. I used a cheap camera and you had like your sweet
sweet cheap camera.
Yeah. So anyway, we need to, we'll do some more of these podcasts again down the road and hammer out some questions if people have them. Send them our way. And
yeah, I mean, by far tee them up because I think I'd like to have this conversation at least on our podcast as well. If we could do it,
I think we need to go into some detail on the camera gear and how you're using it and stuff because I picked your brain a lot this trip, and I really I really learned a lot. So at least how you do it, I won't necessarily do it your way on some things because I just don't like it. But
it's too cheap for you.
But there are other things that I'm like, yeah, I just need to follow Tim's lead here.
Well, you know why I've never shown people my camera setup, don't you? It's because I only have one camera setup. So it'd be kind of hard.
People are going to be like, he makes the show with this?
Yeah. Oh, dude. I don't do it because it'd be a letdown. It'd be like, what? You guys.
Yeah.
No, it's because I'm actually magic in the edit bay. That's what it is.
Yep. All right, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Gritty Bowman and the Solo Hunter podcast. And
thank you all for listening. I appreciate it.
Yes, for sure. I'm going to go ahead and up to see my wife and
do it.
You're going to go
stay in a shanty hotel tonight somewhere in the middle between here and Price. I'm not staying in Price, Utah. I can promise you that. That place is ghetto.
All right, man. Stay gritty.
See ya.
Despite our ever-changing, ever-indignant world with its growing ignorance of and indifference to the ways of the wild, I remain a predator, pitying those who revel in artificiality and synthetic success while regarding me and my kind as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood. I stalk a real world of dark wood and tall grass stirred by a restless wind blowing across sunlit water and beneath star-strewn sky. And on those occasions when I choose to kill, to claim some small part of nature's bounty for my own, I do so by choice, quickly, with the learned efficiency of a skilled hunter. Further, in my heart and mind, I know the truth and make no apologies for my actions or my place in time. Others around me may opt to eat only plants, nuts, and fruits. Still others may employ faceless strangers to procure their meats, their leather, their feathers, and all those niceties and necessities of life. Such is their right, of course, and I wish them well. All I ask in return is no one begrudge me, and all of us who may answer the primordial stirrings within our hunter souls, my right to do some of these things myself.
What you just heard is a quote from M.R. James. We truly live in a world that is largely ignorant and indifferent to the ways of the wild. And although some regard us as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood, we have the opportunity to change the way these people view the hunter and the hunt. We can share our experiences and nature's bounty with those who employ these faceless strangers. And by so doing, we make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wild animals in the wild places we care so deeply about. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting and the outdoors. Our wild animals and our wild places depend on it.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.